Welcome to the Grimfrost Podcast. Today's guest is Einar Selvik, musician, composer, modern-day skald, and the man behind the global phenomenon that is Wardruna. Einar Selvik, welcome to the Grimfrost studio.
Thank you so much. Pleasure.
Great to have you here.
Pleasure is mine, sir.
Yeah. So how far did you have to travel to get here?
Well, not too bad. It was like a 3-hour drive.
Oh, so it's just around the corner. Then.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Could have walked that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would have taken me.
Started last week or something.
Yeah. Something like that. No, quite convenient. So.
Yeah. So how was the past year? You've done a lot of touring, or have you been spending time at home, or?
Well, after the COVID period, it was of course a lot of tours that we've been juggling around.
Yeah.
So the year and a half after that was pretty intense with lots of touring. We had a beautiful finale last September, where we played the last show in Acropolis in Athens, which was go out with a bang.
Yeah.
I say.
Would you say it's one of your best tour memories, or?
It's definitely up there.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, these Roman amphitheater builders, they sure knew what they were doing.
Yeah, they knew their craft.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's a special feeling to walk on stage and become part of that place's history in a way.
Did you try that thing where you go up on top of the stands, and somebody down on the stage part speaks in normal voice?
Yeah.
Did you try that out?
Yeah.
It's crazy how that acoustic works, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's fascinating. It's a true experience.
Yeah.
And it must work really well with the type of instruments that you use as well.
Yeah, especially like the horns and stuff like that. It had, when you compare it to any other outdoor type of venue, it's quite a different world. So
how is it touring with those big Bronze Age brass horns? I mean, look, they're massive.
Yeah, they are. But we when we got them built, we have like an IKEA solution for it. Actually, they are in 3 pieces.
All right. Thank you, Ingvar Kamprad.
Yeah. But then again, that's when you tour with them. That's packing them up and down. That's what tears it. So when we do tours, we have them actually fully mounted in cases. So we keep them safe, basically.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So what do you enjoy most about touring then? Like what's the best part about touring?
I think there are many things that is very rewarding. One thing is that bubble of your extended family. Doing something together. Doing something constructive together with beautiful people. That's we have an incredible team, both within the band, but also the people who help us do what we need to do.
Yeah, the crew and all that.
The crew.
We have kind of the same thing with Amon and Marth. It's like it becomes like a big family.
It does,
and it's important to maintain like relationships within that bubble to make everything work.
And so that is one part, which is always feel like coming home when we get together. And of course it's the meeting with the audience. I feel incredibly lucky to be able to do what I do. And that's something I'm very aware of as well. That I try to savor it, to be present, and not only that, but to be very professional and respectful towards the people who pay money to come join our concerts. So for me, touring is very much about doing whatever I need to do to be 100% when I'm on stage.
And you can tell when you go to a Wardruna show that you have that professional attitude to your shows. It's like I've seen you play a number of times, and it's always great.
Well,
always great shows. So like you can really tell that you bring that sense of professionalism to your craft, which is I think is really impressive, and I think it's really important.
It is, and that's sort of the whole attitude within the whole flock as well. You know, that everyone is carrying their own weight and then some. That's kind of the motto.
Exactly.
In a way.
That's kind of what you need to do.
Yeah.
So, what are the worst part of touring then? Because we have to know. I need to know. Because I know what's the worst part for me, but I want to hear what you have to say.
Well, one thing is being, it can be to be apart from the family, of course. That's not always easy.
And you have children as well.
Yeah, I have 2 children and a wife. So that. On the other hand, that's something we're used to. It's a team effort. That part is also a team effort. So, I don't know. I'm not. I get very exhausted in a way of having too much people and impulses and cities and stuff like that. So. That can be also a challenge, which brings me back to what I said earlier about the importance of doing whatever it is you need to do to be able to recharge.
Yeah, sometimes you just need to have your alone time, even on the road. Yeah, obviously,
exactly.
But I would agree, being away from family and the relentless traveling can be very, for me, in a ways, can be very challenging.
It does something to you, you know. It messes up with your roots.
Exactly,
you know, your grounding and your roots, and like the longest tour we did on this previous round was the 5 weeks we did in the US and Canada, and I think which were all fantastic and great in so many different ways, and but I think. Partly what truly saved me in that long period where you're traveling so much, you're in very urban, big city surroundings, was to like make an effort to the day offs. Yeah. To have them where you can go in the sequoia forest, the redwoods, for instance. Yeah. So we did that. We also did Monument Valley for like 24 hours. That's where nice. You just can fully recharge and connect to a place, you know, and that for me personally, that's I think that that got me through it in a very good way, and I came out on top. Yeah. Which is not always easy, you know. No, I know. You come home to the family and you're a mess.
Exhausted, yeah. You need like 2 weeks to get back on track. Yeah. So I kind of wanted to go into like where your musical journey started. Like, what was your first album, for instance? I mean, for me, my very first album was Keep on Bopping with the Boppers when I was about 4. you know?
Yeah. It was probably something like that, but you know, like the first real obsession, I think was Twisted Sister. You know, okay. That got me hooked like nothing else. Yeah. Like when I was I don't know when, maybe like 4 or 5.
Yeah, I think the Stay Hungry album came out in 82 or 83.
Exactly.
83, yeah.
So 3.
Yeah.
And that's something I remember very vividly. And in that period, I was obsessed by drums.
Yeah.
Also, if I saw a drum on TV or in a magazine, that was.
So, did your parents listen to like hard rock or metal music?
Not at all.
What did they listen
but
to?
I had older siblings, so
Oh, okay.
and a few of those were very much into metal and rock. Then I have, there has always been a lot of a huge variety of music. It's been everything from traditional music to. I have a father who was very much into classical music, which I also enjoy equally to metal. So I don't know. It's been this mix from the start. I would say.
Okay.
I guess that, and the first album I was given was my sister gave me a Rainbow album, I think it was, that she didn't want. So that was like my first LP. That was mine.
What a treasure!
Yeah.
I love Rainbow. Which one?
Can't remember the name.
Rising. No, not. Fuck. No, I can't remember.
No.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, doesn't matter. But
look up Rainbow.
It was was a good moment.
Yeah. But Ronnie James Dio Rainbow, right?
Yes.
All right. Awesome. Yeah. I mean, Rainbow is great, but for me, the Dio years are like, all right.
Yeah.
I guess we're becoming a little bit nerdy here, but So first concert then, like, what sparked your interest, like, to experience live music or even to start playing live music?
Good question. I'm actually not sure. Living in the countryside like I did, grew up north of Bergen in one of the fjords there, and I don't know. The first time I actually was on a proper a concert that I wanted to go on. That was the release party for Immortals Pure Holocaust.
Oh, wow.
In Bergen.
All right.
One of my an older friend of my brother's, he had an extra ticket and brought me because he knew I was at that point. This was quite early in that whole black metal.
That's a great album as well, by the way.
It is.
It's
it
amazing.
is. And I don't know that. I think that experiencing Olve or Abbath in his prime, in this really small club in Bergen called Garage.
I've been there.
Like really, you get very close. It's intimate. So that I think that was a very that made an impression. Both in terms of the drumming and the whole package, the theatrical parts.
So, did you already play drums at that time?
I like I said, I think I got my first toy kit when I was 2 or 3, and I through musician friends of my siblings, I was given an old antique Sonor drum kit from like the 60s. When I was 7 or 8 years. So that's when I started to properly play drums. But I don't know. I realized very quickly that I didn't enjoy playing other people's music.
Oh, okay.
And that was a driving force in me to learn to play guitar and bass and write lyrics and.
Okay. So like, what were your influences then? Because like, even if you didn't want to play other people's music, you must have had like influences that sparked your creativity.
Of course, you mimic the ones you look up to in a way, consciously or subconsciously. So I don't know. It was anything and everything from like Led Zeppelin to
Yeah.
to the more 80s Motley Crue and Wasp and Metallica and
Yeah.
and then of course then came Slayer and the rest is
hard
here.
boys.
Yeah, and the rest is here history.
Yeah. So
At the same time, I have
Yeah.
to say that this fascination for historical music also has always kind of been there, medieval stuff and traditional stuff.
Yeah.
So it's been this weird cocktail from the get-go.
Yeah. So you played in a number of bands. Like I kind of looked it up yesterday, but you played in a number of metal bands, right? How many were there?
I don't know, but it's a lot of them didn't do more than like a demo or two, or maybe a 7-inch, or I did. And to be honest, I had actually when I back in 2000 when I was asked to join Gorgoroth for a tour.
Yeah.
I had actually more or less quit. You know?
Okay.
Yeah, I was like felt quite, because I was involved in several other projects where we had worked really hard. Like one of these projects which Abbath was actually a part of as well for a while. We were signed. We had tours in line. Then it was a duo, basically, the core of it. Then he got like a permanent illness in his arms.
Oh, really?
So many years of work just thrown out the window.
So nothing really became of it?
No, it didn't. And
That's really sad.
and that was kind of a hard blow.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So I kind of lost my motivation there. And then when Gorgoroth asked me if I wanted to do it, I was very unsure if I had the right motivation to do it. You know, because I don't know. At that point, I was also, on a personal level, I was kind of done with the metal.
Yeah, but you did 2 albums with Gorgoroth after that, right?
Only one in studio. I quit.
Oh, okay.
I quit right before the Ad Majorem album. So I did the Twilight of the Idols album with them. I think I played with them for like 4 or 5 years. Yeah. Which in Gorgoroth context is quite a long time.
Quite a long time, yes, I know.
I think they have a world record of number of members.
Something like that, probably. Yeah. But like going back to the early days, like when you started playing in metal bands, like for me, I know, like I only played in one band actually, and it's Amon Amarth. Like that was the first band I played in. I never really thought about playing in a band before that.
No.
But I know that when we got together, one of our main focuses was to party and drink beer and have a good time. Writing songs were kind of like on the side.
Yeah.
But how was it for you? Like, what was the main focus for you in the days, back in the days?
For me, it was the partying was a different branch of me, I think. So for me, the musical part, I think I've always, that part has never been partying for me.
So you kind of want to like create stuff, like an expression.
Yeah. And of course, joining Gorgoroth, where that wasn't, for me, that wasn't very personal. Had it been like 5-6 years earlier, maybe things would have been different. But in my mind, I was already started thinking about Wardruna at this point.
Yeah. Plus, also when you come into a band that late in their career, it's hard to be the one to contribute to the actual creative process, I assume. Yeah,
but at that point also they needed that creative input. So that part was actually quite good. But yeah.
So do you still play drums though, even though you're not that much into metal anymore? Or
It's more like hand drums, and of course, when I work with Wardruna, I do all of the recordings myself of the percussive side. So, but regular drum kit is quite a while since the last time. My son is a bit on and off drummer. So for periods, we have like a proper drum kit still. That
is it just your son who's into writing, creating, playing instruments, music, or both your children?
Well, both children have had their phases of it. My daughter has been more into piano, a little bit guitar, but I don't know. I've been. It's that I've never like pushed for it.
Yeah.
It's but rather said that if you want input, if you want to be pushed, or if you want to learn, then I'm here.
That's great.
So it's on and off a little bit.
Yeah. So going back to going into Wardruna, I mean, the Nordic folk scene today probably wouldn't be what it is without you. I dare say that, because like when you started Wardruna, it kind of changed a lot when it comes to historical music or historical inspired music. So what's your thought on the scene today?
Well, if I am to jump right to how it is today, I do agree. I think we paved the way in a way.
Yeah.
We showed a method, and sort of also created an outlet and an audience.
Yeah.
That sort of, and and that the interesting thing is that audience is not like a homogeneous thing at all. It's like you have all ethnicities, you have all age groups represented. It's like metal people, historical nerds, it's jazz people. It's just this weird, beautiful family, I have to say. But in terms of musical projects that use that is inspired from the past, I have to say that there is also a huge difference between how much homework these various acts have done, and this is something you also see with like movie composers and stuff like that who dabble with our Nordic roots. That there is a huge difference between those who
have a genuine interest.
And they've done their homework. A lot of them in both those camps very often play on the popular notion of what music was back then, rather than letting it. They climbed into trees that didn't have roots. My outlet for Wardruna is definitely it's modern music. The soundscape is 100% modern, but that doesn't mean that a lot of the elements I use don't. A lot of the elements I use, they originate from something factual, something historical, something that we know for sure. And then, so standing on solid ground before going into the creative process, that has always been important for me. And you can, if you know a little bit about what tonalities, rhythmical patterns, poetic structures, etc., then you can determine quite quickly who did their homework and not.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we should go back into more about that. But one thing that interested me is your logo, the bind rune, and the significance behind it, because like every other band these days that play this kind of music has sort of the same rune. So I wanted to ask you a bit later what do you think about that. But first off, what's the significance of the bind rune to you? What does that entail?
Well, it's always there are two ways of. I think people who have used runes for many since their original since they came to be, have there has always been one very pragmatic part to it, and one where it's you can charge it with other things, and I guess for you can look at that bind rune and it you see that it says Wardruna.
Yeah.
And of course, how if there is an esoteric part of runes, very much is about words.
Yeah.
In original rune tradition, it's very often about words, and that's how oral magic work in earlier times as well. It's very much about words, the power of words, and of course that is an important part of that symbol as well. It is Wardruna, and what is Wardruna? It is many different things. It is a word. Well, I tend to say it is the warden of whispers.
Yeah, okay.
Or secrets, or knowledge.
Okay.
Because the word rune has so many different layers to it. So it is like a tree. It has many different branches and paths. And I don't know. That's, I guess, the pragmatic part,
Yeah.
and then it's whatever I put into it.
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's always a personal relationship. I would say, but to you then, what's the whole significance about? I mean, runes in general. What do they mean to you? Because you have songs about each rune in the Futhark.
Yeah. Well, runes is it's a theme where I've dramatically changed my mind so many times, which I think is a very healthy approach to it, because there are the second you start digging into runes, you understand how little we know. especially about the older traditions.
Yeah.
The first ones.
And especially if you use Google as your source for
yeah. I was lucky in that sense because when I, in my early teenagers, sort of found my interest for the esoteric parts, mainly actually, that was the starting point. I was thankfully I was pointed in the direction of reading the sources, which I think saved me a lot of confusion.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I feel very lucky to have understood at an early point the significance of knowing how we know what we think we know about the runes or whatever else I'm working with. Because if you know a little bit about the history of not only the runes but runology, how and when did we find these things out? How trustworthy are these sources? Not like just regurgitating things that has sort of become a new truth in a way. And of course, if your introduction to runes is from like 70s and 80s rune magic books, then which is kind of a. I'm not saying that it's not. It doesn't work, or it's that it's just nonsense, but it's something else.
Yeah, I would say it depends on the person who reads it, I would say.
That is also, of course, a big part of it. But it is this mixture of many different traditions.
Yeah.
You have numerology, you have Kabbalah, you have like astrology attached to it. They sort of created a new thing.
Yeah.
Where there of course are elements of the old tradition, or those few things we know or think we know.
Yeah.
So at the same time, it deals very little with words.
Yeah.
Which is, so when people ask me, runes, where do I start? You start by learning how to write with them.
Yeah.
How does runes work in as a writing system? Because if you don't know that, and you start to go into the really difficult part, the more esoteric parts of it, then you have a very weak card on your hands, basically, in terms of actually understanding how they work.
Yeah.
Also, I think people often do the mistake of starting with the Proto-Scandinavian runes, the older Futhark.
Exactly.
Which is the ones we definitely know the least about.
Yeah.
They do represent perhaps a more complete system, which is what fascinates me very much with them as well. But we know a lot more about later rune traditions, so that is also a smart place to stand. But I don't know. The what runes are for me, I don't know. I actually.
But do you see them as a connection to the past? Because
of course,
that's how it started for me. Actually, when I was like, runes is actually my gateway into Norse history.
Yeah,
that's how that started for me.
But why?
Because
how they look, is it?
Because how they look, and for me, it was fascinating that we had a writing system in Scandinavia that we don't use anymore, but that actually represented words, even if they were only carved on runestones. And I come from an area south of Stockholm where we have a lot of runestones.
Yeah.
So they were everywhere in our landscape.
Yeah.
So for me, that was like an epiphany, and that kind of led me into not maybe the world of runes, but the world of mythology originally, and then to the historical part of the Norse as well. So did you have sort of the same experience?
Yeah, I would definitely say that. I also grew up with a lot of like stories and saga literature, and I had people in my family who were very nerdy about that. So, which meant that if you were somewhere, you would always get the history of what had happened here at some point.
Okay.
And although I enjoyed it, I didn't really reflect much upon it until I sort of found my own interest for it in my early teens. And then, of course, I understood that so many of these things, they had been stored somewhere inside me, and that they definitely had given me like a sense of place in history and sense of place. And of course, the runes, they are very alluring in how they look. The aesthetics of runes are very powerful. And
I was going to say that it's quite powerful.
Yeah, it is. So and when you discuss whether or not, I think very often the discussion if runes are magic or not is like the premise of this discussion is very often wrong, because you have to imagine that when runes started to become a thing, when you were knowing how much power laid in words and poetry and stuff like that. Of course, when you are able to manifest these words onto things that stands forever. If that's not magic,
that is kind of magic, actually.
yeah, you know, and you have to remember the context always. You have to remember the context of which these traditions arose.
Well, from a context, you can say, I doubt that this podcast will last 1,000 years, but the rune stones are still here, and they probably will be.
Hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so when other bands used the bind rune as well, I mean, obviously you started the whole thing about doing that, and then it sort of became the way you do it. And in many ways, it's actually similar to the death metal scene and the black metal scene. Everybody was going to have these elaborate, really gory types of logos, and now bind runes is this thing. So what's your thought on that? Is it something that bothers you, or is it you know?
Well, first of all, I think it's I think we see it in you know, everything from like the world of big companies, or and also you see it in the pop world, that having a symbol or some sort of familiar that is you, that's it's useful, and I when people, I don't know, I don't, to be absolutely honest with you, I don't, I register it, that there are a lot of similar rune symbols in this genre, or whatever we should call it, but I don't know, I focus on myself and what we do, and if we inspire people to create things, I think that's more positive than not. You know, so it doesn't bother me.
All right, good.
I take it as a compliment.
Yeah, well, I think it is actually.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah. So going back to like starting Wardruna, we talked a little bit earlier before we started doing the podcast that you went to New Zealand and hung out with. Did you live with mowers, or did you just stay with them for a while? Or
well, I didn't live there, but my brother did.
Yeah.
So I lived and traveled with some for a period of time. This was a bit before I started Golgoroth and all of that as well. So it was kind of in a period where I was perhaps a bit ruthless as well, and the thought of doing something with I knew where my passion was, and that was very much in history, in tradition, but I don't know, for me, that I think that journey, and that was my first like proper being somewhere else than Sweden kind of journey. Yeah. I'm not talking down Sweden.
No.
But
I know what you mean.
Yeah,
it's a completely different culture and like different place of the world.
Yeah, and we were
is different.
Yeah. And we were lucky to be allowed in to quite some special places, and it wasn't a tourist travel, so, both in terms of where we stayed and the places we visited, and
so did that inspire you to continue developing the Wardruna idea?
Yeah, in a way, I think that Wardruna was in a way like properly born down there. Not like for the reason that when you meet people who are so in touch with their history, with their animistic traditions and so on. And I think what it sparked in me was it made me very aware about what I was missing. Mm-hmm. So in a way, I found my voice there. Yeah. I found out if you what you need to create art is friction.
Yeah.
You need to have a problem.
Yeah,
exactly. And for me, I understood what I was missing. Mm-hmm. What I wanted to give voice to.
Yeah.
And that was the things that from my own tradition that I know is there, lying in some corner gathering dust as a good preserved secret in a way, and give voice to it. No, and it's so that was actually a very important thing that happened in my life.
So how big was the leap to go from like playing and writing metal to writing the Wardruna songs and playing in the Wardruna? Like how big was the leap there? Because on the surface of it, or maybe even deeper, it seems like two completely different worlds.
Mm. Yeah, in a way it is, but there are also similarities, especially like in conceptual and attitude. I would say there are similarities to many different art forms where the thoughts behind the music is perhaps even more important than the sounds that you create.
Yeah.
You know, that the ideas behind it is just as important, at least, and technique and those kind of things, that's secondary. It's more about the intangible, the I don't know, but but I don't know I can't read notes, I can't write notes. You know, I'm a musical illiterate, so for me, I see music, I hear music, and
just feeling it.
Yeah. And this was kind of simultaneously as I started playing in Gorgoroth, and so this would be like year 2000. And I started to go into I decided to do something about this vision I'd been carrying around for quite some years, and then of course it was going into the musical history. What do we have actually?
Yeah.
What do we know? What instruments are there? And of course that part was a very long journey, because at that point there was like a handful of people who knew about these things. It was a very small group of people in the Nordic region who made these instruments or played them, at least made them for themselves. And so that part was about talking to instrument builders, musical archaeologists, making some of the instruments myself, or having other people do it for me. So that was one part of it. And then, of course, experimenting with the soundscape and finding the recipe of how it should sound, chasing what I heard inside, you know. And that took me 7 years to do, from the first recording till the release of the album.
That's a lot of. If you want to make it like as true to the essence of it as you want, as you mentioned earlier, you really have to go back to the roots. So
and I tried, like, some of these instruments also. If you give a talharpa, you know, a horsehair fiddle to a traditional musician, they will play traditional music on it, like automatically. And some of these instruments I wanted to I was persistent on not hearing any music played on them before I got the chance to at least try and explore it myself. So I could do it like a child in a way, with no like pre-decided idea of how it should sound, and rather explore it on the instruments terms, rather than just my own thing.
Yeah. That's super interesting, and one thing that kind of that popped into my mind, because as I said before, I've seen you play many times, and always before the last song of the show, you have this really like inspiring speech, I think, where you say, well, I'm not going to say the whole speech, and I don't want to ask you to repeat it, but you say that we used to have songs for everything, for birth, for death, for harvest, for sowing, and that you don't want to like recreate the old songs, but make new ones for the modern world, so to speak.
Yeah,
Yeah. Can you elaborate on that? Like, what's the feeling that you have about this?
Yeah, for me, Wardruna is not about, or has never been about recreating music from any specific time period. You know, I use elements from that go back to Stone Age, Bronze Age, Migration period, Viking period, or and medieval times, even modern input. You know, so it's more about creating something new with something old, and there are many ways of creating authenticity, and of course the soundscape is modern, but a lot of the creative decisions they originate from something we know, whether it's some songs it's the poetry, some songs it's the language, some songs it's the instrumentation, the tonalities. You know, there are many ways. So, for me, I think it's there are so many things from the past that is completely irrelevant today.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really make any sense. It doesn't speak to us, and it doesn't really have a place.
No.
On the other hand, there are so many things that is just as important today or relevant today as it was 2,000 years ago. And one of the reasons is because so many of these traditions were born out of the very ground we still walk on. In a way, they are born out of nature, which means that it's still there. You know, it didn't left. We
just forgot about it.
Yeah, we sort of separated ourselves. From
that's probably a better word for it.
From that part. So and I do think that there are so many people today who feel that profoundly. They don't even know that they are missing it. But so creating that, being that bridge is kind of what I'm trying to do with the music, and to create a bridge. And this is, I think, in all parts of performance, whether it's a skald in the 900s talking about his lineage, or her, or if it's me standing on a stage today telling a story, it always helps if you have a contemporary reference that there is. And in Wardruna, of course, soundscape is part of that, but also the timeless themes we're singing about. It's nature. You hear the sounds of nature. That is what we try to mimic. It's in a way, and it would be the same thing for the 800, the skald in the 800s. You know, I think for his jokes for him to tell or her to tell his great grandfather's joke, he would need sort of a contemporary hook to it, you know, to make people laugh, and you know, it's so simple.
But then again, like I actually learned this the other day. Back then, the way people related to their ancestors and to their history was so different, because I think there are proof that people of the Viking Age could remember, or at least they knew of their ancestors 27 generations back in time. How many of us can say that we know, like, that we know our ancestors even like 3 or 4 generations back in time?
No, it's.
I mean,
yeah, we live in a world where that it doesn't, lineage doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't hold the same place as it did in society back then, and of course, most of us can't even remember 3 phone numbers.
No, that's true. Not today. I could back in the day when we had the backlight.
But this is also the case with the skalds and the singers, and this goes up until when I can draw an example to the Karelians, the Finno-Ugric and Karelian song traditions when they were collected 150 years ago. The Kalevala poetry is just a small part of that, but reading these singers describe that they have they know maybe 300-400 songs, where many of them have maybe a couple of hundred verses each.
That's crazy.
So it's just unfathomable for us to understand this. How it was in oral society.
Yeah. Plus, but I would also argue that back in those days, the perception of time was different. I mean, today for us, time is linear.
Yeah.
There's a beginning, there's an end. But for people of the Iron Age, Viking Age, Bronze Age, it was more circular.
Yeah.
So
it's a spiral or a circle or a cyclic. It's mimicking nature.
Exactly.
Their perception is.
So you would maybe, like, my imagination, anyways, kind of when you say that, like a skull that tells a joke that his great grandfather told needs to have a contemporary hook. Maybe not so much back then as you would do today, telling like your grandfather's joke.
No,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely not as much.
Yeah.
I think here today is yesterday's news much faster than it was back then.
Yeah.
But in any case, it's like one of the premises of performance, which of course, when you work with these things, I think my advantage from my work with historical music is that that I have this dual approach to it. One is the music history nerd, the ethnomusicologist in a way, but then I'm a practitioner as well, and I am a performer. So you have sort of 3 different sets of logics.
Yeah.
So when the sources stop, then the instrument builder kicks in, the practicalities, and then you have a totally different set of logics when you're standing in front of an audience. That follows a different different set of logics.
Even time changes when you're on stage.
Yeah. And one of the things you do is that you cultivate and develop what works when in front of an audience. If you do a bad joke one night, you're not going to do the same joke in the same way the day after. And I guess, and this is kind of when I read like academic dissertations about, for instance, the performance poetry or can be many different things. I feel that or even poetry in general, sometimes it feels like they are asking the wrong questions, because it's obvious that they have actually never tried to write a poem.
Yeah.
Like truly write a poem, and especially not writing a poem that's supposed to fit a recipe.
Yeah.
Because then it's a completely different set of logics again.
Yeah.
But that goes both ways. Sometimes I can tell that where, it goes both ways. Sometimes it's they who gives me perspective, and sometimes it's I feel I have something to contribute with.
Always nice when you learn something, isn't it?
Definitely, it's beautiful. That's why we're here.
Yeah.
You know.
So this was a really long talk about this, but I thought it was super interesting. But I wanted to get to, because the talk about like the songs that they used to sing, it always, at least the shows that I've seen, precursors, the song that, for me anyways, and I think most people would agree, embodies Wardruna, and that's Helvegen.
Mm-hmm.
And can you tell us about that song? What it means to you?
It's. I think the idea for, like, a few of the phrases that are like in the core poetry that sort of gave birth to the song, that's been there, and that is, of course, that's basically a question. It originates from the first thing I sing in the lyrics. Who is going to sing me across the day I pass?
Yeah.
And as I said, in both in our region and in so many other places on this planet, singing has been such an important part of our daily life, of our cultic life, and I think it has I think we need to sing more. Actually,
Yeah. What? I kind of agree, actually.
Yeah, singing is medicine. Singing together creates very unique and special bonds. Our kids need to sing more in schools. You know, I don't know how it's in Sweden, but in Norway we sing less and less. At the same time, we're complaining that language skills are getting so much worse, reading skills, you know, and it's such an when we know by science,
pretty much the same discussion in Sweden, actually.
Yeah. So we need to sing more, and Helvegen is a song about singing, but at the same time, it's also a song about death.
Yeah,
it's a song about memory.
Yeah. So would you say that the Helvegen is like a physical, mental, or spiritual journey in that context?
All of the above. Whatever. It doesn't have to be a spiritual thing. It can be a philosophical thing. It can be a psychological thing. You know, and I think for most of Wardruna's music is kind of like that. I think I try to be inspired by how Håvamål does their thing. You know, where you have one part for the farmer, and then you have the warrior, and then you have the sage.
Yeah,
and there is a little bit for everyone. You know, whatever. No, but I try to make it a multi-layered thing where it can make sense whether or not you have a spiritual approach to it or not. It doesn't really matter. And so for me, it's all of the above. And Helvegen is kind of it's a very powerful thing to be part of. To see how that song just got a life of its own.
Yeah.
I've seen it in so many different languages, and I can't remember. You know, I've received countless stories, emails, messages, and people who have told me in person that they use it.
Yeah.
They use it in funeral. They use it for people who die. They use it for grief work.
Yeah.
The fact that the song has sort of manifested itself as to the original hope that is being sung is kind of absurd to be witnessing in a way.
So it's a song about death, you say, and it's used in funerals all over the world. So what's your thoughts on death? I mean, this is a big story, big question, but I think since this is such a big song for Wardruna, and it really comes across as this really soulful piece of music, I think.
Well, first of all, death is the only thing that is real in a way. One of the few things we know for sure is going to happen in life.
Eventually, yes.
So, and that's kind of one of the things that the song addresses as well, that we need to relate to death again. And in Western society, or in Norway at least, most people have never seen a dead person, that's death. We don't talk about it. I'm not going to sit here and generalize it totally, but as a whole, I think that's the trend, that death is something we'd rather not think about or talk about or relate to in any sorts of way.
I mean, in several cultures across the world, you have the open casket at burials, but I know in Sweden we don't.
Same in Norway.
Right? So you're right. I think most people probably have never seen a dead person in their life.
And it's it's nature. It's something we see all around us all the time.
Yeah.
And I just think it's unnatural not to think about it. And of course, Helvegen is partly about that, voicing death and talking about death.
Yeah. I actually kind of agree with you, because I think doing that can be actually kind of healing.
Absolutely. That is, voicing it is part of healing, definitely. And voicing it together is perhaps even more healing. How you grieve as a flock.
Was that kind of the reason for writing the song? Was there that kind of mentality that went into writing it?
Yeah, that also. It's the starting point is of course me missing that these traditions are a part of our world. Like I sing in the first sentence, who is going to sing me across and you across? Because I think that is something that holds a true value. And the writing that song was it's almost like it's a song that came into place just in a matter of a few days. Very intense days. I don't think I slept much. It was just like, so when I think back on that, it feels like I made it in 10 minutes in a way. 10 like really insane minutes where it was I just couldn't stop.
I kind of know the feeling, even if I haven't like written a song in that precise way. But like when you get into that like creative mode where like time just almost stands still, and then you realize it's like hours or days have passed.
The song is writing you in a way. You are just an instrument, a vessel of some sort. It was just a song that, and it was on a runic album. It wasn't supposed. It's not a song like that I had planned to write at all. It just came. And I'm happy it did.
It's an amazing song. I
Thank
love
you.
it. Yeah. So going back to maybe a little bit lighter topic, we touched upon it earlier, but I kind of wanted to know, what's your favorite instrument to play, to listen to?
Well, it's not drums anymore. I sort of had my face with that. I don't know. It really varies. I don't think I have one. I have these periods where I just love playing bowed instruments in various forms, like tagelharpa or still, I have to say that because singing has become such an important part of my life and of my healing and it's just such an important part of my life. I would have to say that playing lyre is perhaps the most important instrument for me because I do it so much, and it's as the word indicates, it's connected to singing and poetry.
Yeah.
It comes from the Greek word lyrikos.
Yeah.
And that is what it does effortlessly as well, accompany singing or stories or poetry. And I kind of feel like it's part of me.
Yeah.
Can play myself to sleep, basically.
So that's an historical instrument. Is that like a Viking Age lyre, or is it where?
Well, the history of lyre goes back many thousand years, so way before Viking Age, and it's an instrument type we have like we have it in the Far East, we have it in ancient Greece, in Egypt, all across Europe, and in Northern Europe. It would, as far as we know, be the most common string instrument of the Viking period, as far as we know. And I would, there are indications that it's an instrument that was predominantly connected to the aristocracy.
Okay.
So if the skalds indeed had an instrument, this would be it.
Yeah.
It's connected to the poetic tradition rather than the more folk tradition of the people, where it's we have mentions in the sagas, a few places that where there is one skald who kind of scoffs the king for appreciating the flute players and fiddlers more than his poetry.
Oh, okay.
So he's
he shouldn't do that.
No.
All right, but you, you're a composer as well. I mean, not only for Wardruna and writing songs for like you're an actual composer who have made. Written music for several different productions. Like what productions have you been involved in? I know Vikings, for instance.
Yeah, Vikings is they've of course they've used a lot of Wardruna's music, countless. I think it's like 50 or 60 placements of Wardruna music. But on top of that, I've both worked with Trevor Morris, the main composer, on the actual soundtrack, but also done soundtrack work directly for the production. Both stuff happening in front of camera, as well as the score music.
Yeah.
You know the song of the brothers.
Yeah,
my mother told me. That's a piece that I wrote for them using the poetry of Egil Skallagrimsson.
Yeah, exactly. My favorite Icelandic saga, by the way.
Yes, same here. Same here.
So, but that's actually something I wanted to get into. So let's do that right away. People are not really aware of that you actually wrote the music for this.
There are there exist some rimur versions of it or melodic versions of that poem in Iceland, but that's a different melody.
Yeah, exactly.
So this melody that's used in Vikings, that's something I wrote for them.
It was great to get it out there.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
No, I see a lot of it's a band. It's a song that a lot of bands are making their own versions of. I've seen.
Yeah, I think it's a great song. I think it's a great interpretation, and I love that piece of poetry as well.
You
it's
know,
beautiful.
Egil, the poetry of Egil Skallagrimur is absolutely stunning, and the saga, as you say, it has everything. You know,
exactly.
So for people watching or listening, you should.
Plus, also my name is mentioned there. My last name. Yeah, Hegg on Heggstad.
Of course.
Yeah, his son gets killed. That's it. That's all I'm in there for one page.
Yeah, but that's not a little thing.
No. No. So but.
So yeah, Vikings is one thing, but I've done a number of smaller things, but I guess the other major production I've been part of musically is being one of the composers on Assassin's Creed Valhalla, the video game, which was
how was that?
That was a lot of fucking work. No, it was great. It was great, and I was very, it's. I'm very careful with projects I say yes to.
Yeah.
And I've been asked to do many game soundtracks previously, and I don't know. I like that the separation between fact and fiction is very clear.
Oh yeah.
In this universe, they definitely fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
They wanted to create the ultimate Viking fantasy. At the same time, they wanted me to highlight the skaldic tradition.
Yeah.
And the skaldic tradition, whenever a series or a movie is portraying that part of our history, that is always left out.
Yeah.
Which I feel is a real pity.
It is, because it's such a big part of it.
It is, and you have to remember this was an oral society, and the power of poetry and the significance of the skalds that's quite prominent. So the fact that they wanted me to do something as it's not very. A lot of my work on that video game is pretty black metal in the sense that it's not, it doesn't have this huge soothing soundscape. It's me, it's a lyre, bone dry sound, and it's in some cases we wrote original poetry that would fit the story in a way. The other part of the work was like hand-picking original skaldic poetry that could fit the setting. So it's a pretty... you can criticize Assassin's Creed and Ubisoft for a lot of historical inaccuracies if you want, but they also did some pretty brave, cool stuff with that game.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually only started playing it myself, and I actually kind of enjoy it, but I haven't really gotten into the story yet. So it's like I'm very fascinating to see what happens.
Yeah.
But like writing music for different productions. I mean, Amon Amarth, my band, we've been asked to write music to different productions, and we've always said no to write specific stuff because it feels like such a big task to take on, really, So
it is.
What would you say are is the biggest challenge and the biggest difference between writing for like TV or movies or compared to writing for Wardruna?
Wardruna, I am the boss.
Okay.
I don't compromise
Yeah.
1 millimeter.
No, of course not.
But you have to have the premise when you are invited into a production. It's basically 99% sure that they will have the final call, and that's something you need to. So you can't get too emotionally connected to your stuff before it's actually there. So that's one thing, and I don't know. It's a completely different way of expressing yourself. You have to find the balance between when you give space and when you claim space.
Yeah.
Because you have to play, you have to be on the same team as what happens on the screen in a way. And of course, also you have a lot of people with opinions on how it's supposed to be.
See, for me, that would be like almost impossible to do because like I have really difficult time forcing my creativity anywhere.
Yeah.
So to curve the creativity to fit somebody else's, that must be really difficult.
It is difficult, and I'm very slow. You know, I'm like a tree. I need time. I need space to. So for me, also, it was a huge challenge, especially the Vikings, where I remember one time I just got an email like Thursday evening. We forgot. We need you to write something for this as well, and it should sound something like this. And then the temporary music was Helvägen, of course. You have to deliver tomorrow.
Wow!
And that's like, okay. So
I'm not
you want
say
me?
What I would tell those people to do.
There were many thoughts.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. So but you have to. Then you have to just be really instinctive.
Yeah.
Like go for gut feeling. You have to just attack it.
Yeah.
You can't sort of
lean back.
You can't observe.
No.
You have to be really like attacking the task.
Yeah.
That's the attitude, the mindset you need to go into it with. And that was a very steep learning curve for me because I've always been working very slow and taking my time and be very patient, not forcing it and so on.
Yeah.
So, my meeting with a production like that was pretty brutal.
I can imagine. So, what's next for Wardruna and Einar Selvik?
New music is where my main focus lies now. Hopefully, I'll be able to share something soon. Those things are a little bit up in the air, but that is, it was really good to go back into the shadows and create. That's performing is a beautiful thing, something I enjoy very much. But I have to say that what really gives me most is the creative part.
Yeah.
It's painful, but also that I think I've always had that a very profound need to make stuff.
Yeah.
Whether it's a photo or a painting or a poem or a song, it's just I cannot not do it. So
you're not like me then. I enjoy fiddling my thumbs around.
All right. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Einar Selvik. It's been a pleasure to have you here. Looking forward to hearing new Wardruna stuff and hearing more of the stuff you did for Assassin's Creed for myself. So
thank you so much for having me.
Our pleasure. Thank you.